I was talking to Helwani earlier, and we were weighing in on Anthony Smith, and Ariel came to what appears to be a very obvious conclusion that Anthony Smith needs to take a break. But there's a little bit more to it in terms of what does that mean. First off, you want to know whose opinion really matters here is Anthony Smith's. Now, everything can be very clear when you're a fan. When you're standing back at something from 10,000 feet above and you're looking down, it's really easy to see all of the pieces. But when you're in the moment and you just want to get back in there and that's all you know and push and grind, it's not as obvious. Like if you were to talk to Anthony and see if he was to look within himself and go, okay, what happened in this match? He is likely to come to a physicality conclusion for you. I was kicked in the leg and it hurt. By example. It's very unlikely that he would be objective enough about himself with the life that he's living and the grind that he knows and the positive habits that he has to understand he's tired. So how do you take a break? And that's not as simple as it may seem. Taking a break is not going on vacation, right? If you guys were to relate to it, somebody goes, hey, you've done your job so much, we're going to have you just stop doing your job for a little bit. You're probably going to throw your hands up and go, yes, I'm seeing sunshine, and I see some kind of a drink with some kind of an umbrella in it, and I see myself in shorts. It's one of these deals. Never would I want to accidentally credit John Jones. Though, one thing that John does very well when he's taking a break, which is representative of most of his life, but he's doing something that kind of looks like the sport in some fashion. John lately's been really into lifting weights, for example. And even though that is a break and may not directly translate, you can see where showing up somewhere at a specific time to do a specific task that does involve physicality in a sport where strength certainly doesn't hurt, you can see where those things start to tie in. And I only offer you that one example because there's so many. There's so many things that you could take a break from MMA, and the very first thing that would mean if you were within MMA is stop the chatter. Do not go to a .com again. Do not go to an ESPN/MMA again for a period of time. And you'd be stunned. 30 days. I mean, you'd really be stunned. Let's just say Anthony, in this case, took 30 days. 30 days and he was not going to read about, talk about, do anything with MMA, which is quite avoidable. There's some channels that you turn to. If you don't turn to them, you're not going to see MMA. There's websites that you specifically go to, and if you don't go to them, you won't hear MMA. I mean, it would almost be humorous, almost a humorous study within Anthony's own mind if he detached and unplugged from MMA, which is very possible to do only for 30 days. He wouldn't know what was going on. There would be championship fights made in the next 30 days. The rules of the pandemic could change within 30 days. Different locations and venues will be made within 30 days. Somebody of a big name consequence will go up in weight or down a weight and add parity to a new division somewhere within the next 30 days. I mean, it would be a very interesting thing. So when I tell you that you could unwind and unplug and completely get a rest from something in 30 days, not only could you do it, so much would happen, you'd be stunned. It will feel like a lifetime. That's how MMA is. Right? I mean, Khabib versus Tony could be signed and re-signed 3 times within the next 30 days. Okay, I'm being silly, but things do go very fast. And there is people historically who are able to leave a sport for a very meaningful time and come back and do great. And that's not what we're talking about here in the case of Anthony Smith. We're not talking any more than 60 days. We're not talking any more than 90 days. And I mean from a physical standpoint. For sure, 2 weeks, do nothing, put your feet up, enjoy those kids, man. For sure, for 2 weeks. Anytime you're even thinking, should I have an extra donut or an extra slice of pizza? The answer is yes. Should I go through the drive-thru? Yes, the answer is yes. For sure, for a couple of weeks. But then you start to get into the other side of it, now you're going to force it. Now I'm going to force myself. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get up and go for a walk, a nice long walk. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go and find a swimming pool. It's summertime. I'll get some laps in, get my heart rate up. There's ways to do things while not doing them. Okay. But it's a balancing act. It requires some conversation. right? There's things that Anthony's tired of that he doesn't know he's tired of. There's a drive on the exact same path to a gym every single day that has a certain smell when he walks through the door that he doesn't even know that he's tired of. There's just some breaks that you have to think. And I do look at some great athletes who did not do 30, 60, 90 days like we're discussing here. But they did do something more extreme, and they came back and got incredible results. First off, Chael Sanderson. Now, to compare any athlete in any field over the history of time to Chael, you're making a leap. But Chael took 7 years off from a sport of wrestling. If guys take 7 months off, they're not getting their spot back. They were the number one guy. They take 7 months off. They're not coming back at number one. If they're a number 5 guy, they take 7 months. They're not coming back to number 5. Just isn't going to happen. Took off 7 years. Very meaningful period of time. But he was in the room coaching. And he was around it. And he was watching it. And he was dressing down every day. And he was getting plenty of pushes and pulls and workouts in. And his weight was within striking distance, which was evident of the fact that he was still getting work in somewhere. So it wasn't as though he just disappeared into the woods and walked back in, but he took 7 years off. He left the number one guy. 7 years later, he reclaimed his spot at number one, but he freshened himself. It's very fresh. It was a whole new set of guys. He wasn't sitting there glued and then putting himself in the spot. How would I do with this guy? What would I do in this position? How would I attack him? He just fresh. He was very fresh mentally. Gave himself a break, came back, got his spot back. I look at what Lance Armstrong did in all fairness. Lance took a lot of years off, and Lance came back and made it back to the tour. I want to say he finished 7th or he finished 11th or something, but he left for a period of time and came back, but he was still biking. And he was still involved in some capacity, and it turned out that he was kind of a cardio guy and liked to run. So while his body was still active of some sort, he had freshened his mind up and he came back. And I also look at Simone Biles, right? Who I believe to be the greatest athlete that I have ever seen any sport, any time in life. But she either left the sport for a year or even officially announced her retirement and then came back. But either way, there was a break. There was a period of time and there's a tipping point, right? Chael Sanderson was way above what the tipping point would be of 7 years. 7 years to come back and reclaim your number one spot. Okay, fine. Anyone else that's ever done that, you'll never find an example, but you will find plenty of examples that are closer to what Simone did. You will find plenty of examples that are closer to that 1 year. One that we're seeing within our own sport, but was Uriah Faber. Faber goes, hey guys, thanks for the memories, and I'm off. But he was staying in the gym, and then he was cornering guys, and then he was teaching techniques and showing different intricacies to guys. All of the while, he's learning something. His weight stays the same, so you could tell he was doing something, but he also came in with a fresh mind. He was completely recharged, walks in there with Ricky Simone, and a minute later, he's walking out with a victory with something he hadn't done in over a year. I just offer this to you. There is a tipping point and there is a balance. As you put it in the case of Anthony Smith, there are some questions that he needs to ask himself, such as, what am I going to do with my time? What kind of a break am I going to take? What does this look like? It's not about go out and go to a new gym and get new coaches. But if you did go to a different gym, just by example, just for something to do, just to stay sharp and go through the movements and the motions, there are ways that you could do that would freshen things, that would change that drive. Change the smell that you smell each day. Change the way that you warm up. That all starts to become mundane in a routine. Some gyms, every day, 3 o'clock, up and running. I mean, I've heard that in more gyms, up and running. Everybody jumps up and they start running in a circle. And they'll say, roll out your right arm and roll out your left arm. Then you go into other gyms every day at 3 o'clock. Hey, grab a partner, start moving around about 20%. You never stretch once. You never do a jumping jack once, but you start moving around with it. There's just a different way. But when you go and do that different way, it isn't to make believe that this is a better way or your mind's going to grow or this coach does. It's just a way to recharge. Just a way to refresh. I know guys that will go in and spar MMA absolutely every day, and when they're looking for that break period, they don't even go to MMA class. They go to the same gym, but they show up to jiu-jitsu practice instead. Instead of sparring at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're rolling around at 11 a.m. They're staying active, they're getting their heart rate up, they're staying in good habits, but they've detached from that. Very much so. And then as you start to ease your way back in, there's a way to do that too. You don't, okay, well, my 90 days is up, boom. Let's spar. No, you show up a few times and you watch. You go do that drive, you smell that smell, you're on time, you're watching. And a few days after doing that, now you're going to do all of those same steps, except you're going to warm up and then you're out of there. You're done. And then you're going to warm up and you're going to drill for another 3 or 4 days, and then you're done. I mean, all before you get back into it. There's just a way. There's a way that when you're a brute thoroughbred like Anthony Smith, you don't know. You've never known that way. In fact, you look down on anybody who does that way. That guy's lazy. That guy doesn't deserve to be in my spot. For the most part, he'd be right. Not just 9 out of 10 times, 9.9 out of 10 times, Anthony would be right. That guy's lazy. He doesn't do. But every now and then when you're a black belt in mixed martial arts and there really isn't a whole lot of room to get better, it is about maintaining. Evander Holyfield talked about this at great length after he was the champion of the world. And they were asking him how you push and how you work harder. And it was a very different answer than I heard. And Evander said, I have to maintain. Right now, I have to maintain. Some days I will go into the gym. I used to come in, I'd put as much weight as I possibly could on that bar, and I'd have a spotter, and I'd be curling, I'd be wanting all these reps. Now there's days I'll come in, I'll grab that bar, I'll put 10-pound plates on either side, and I'll just crank out some reps. I'm just trying to maintain. My days of growing and getting better have happened, reminiscent of the fact I'm a top guy in the world. But maintaining is just as important. It's just as important. There's time for learning, there's time for growth, and there is a time where you got to maintain. Clayton Hires can't tell you how many fighters I've heard him after a fight. He will tell you, don't come in the gym and go get fat. He will tell you that he believes gaining weight and getting out of shape is a very important part that you should show up with your first day of training camp. That you should have a barometer of as far as you can go so that you have something to build towards. So that as your weight starts to come down, it's reminiscent of the fact that your training is going up, that if you show up perfect and you think we're going to go anywhere, then where's the mental boost? We have to have something that we can track. I've heard him tell guys, good job. Good job. You earned it. Win or lose, go get fat. I'll see you in 6 weeks. It's a real thing, though. There's breaks in there. This is not a new lifestyle. This is not a new maintenance level of, okay, we're going to do everything less and expect just as good of a result. We're just talking about a break. Talking about a break. And we're not talking about physical as much as we're talking here. Detaching. It's a real thing. Number of guys have done it. The guys who have done it, much like the athletes on this board. The difference they have, and it's not the gold medals and the beautiful trophies that they have an extension of their career. They were able to extend their career. Rest is just as important as training.